Hey assistant, how tall is the Empire State Building? Hey assistant, how tall is the Empire State Building? Hey assistant, how tall is the Empire State Building? Hey assistant, how tall is the Empire State Building?
Hey, assistant, how tall is the Empire State Building?
The Whispering Shore. Continued. He arrived just after sunrise, when the light was soft enough to touch, but not yet bright enough to blind. His name didn't matter, not to the ocean, because the sea never asks for names. It only remembers faces, hearts, and the weight of footsteps on wet sand. He was a traveler, not by choice, but by habit. Life had taught him to keep moving, from city to city, job to job, dream to dream. He had loved once, deeply, foolishly, like all who truly live. But the love he had built fell apart one quiet afternoon, and when it did, he left without saying goodbye. The world told him to forget, but the ocean whispered otherwise. That morning, as he walked the beach, the wind carried voices, laughter, memories, the faint echo of a woman's song. Children ran past him, splashing through the foam, their joy unbothered by the weight of time. He watched them and thought, how easily they love the world. Further down the shore, a woman was sketching something in the sand, slow, deliberate lines that disappeared as soon as the tide reached her feet. She looked fragile from a distance, but her eyes, when he finally saw them, carried the kind of strength that comes from surviving storms. They met by accident, though the sea never allows accidents. She looked up, brushing her hair away from her face, and smiled like she already knew him. "You walk like someone searching for something," she said softly. He hesitated, unsure whether to laugh or agree. "Maybe," he replied, "or maybe I'm just trying not to be found." Chapter 4. Where the Waves Go. When the sea pulls away, it never truly leaves. It simply gathers strength to return again. That's what he told himself the morning she left. Her footprints trailed across the damp sand, small, imperfect, beautiful, fading as the tide crept closer. She didn't turn back, and he didn't call her name. Maybe because the ocean wouldn't allow goodbyes here. It only allows beginnings disguised as endings. He stayed until her figure disappeared into the distance, until the air turned still, and the sound of waves became his only companion. The world had gone quiet, but not empty. It pulsed with something unspoken, like the ache between heartbeats. Days turned to weeks. The beach changed with the season. Seagrass grew taller, driftwood gathered by the rocks. Children's laughter returned in softer tones. But for him, everything felt the same, as though time had chosen to circle instead of move forward. He spent his mornings walking the shore, collecting shells, watching the light slide across the water. He learned to listen again, really listen, not for her voice, but for what she had left behind. The ocean spoke differently now. It was quieter, slower, but wiser. Sometimes he would see lovers sitting where they once had, or an artist painting under the same sky. He wondered if the ocean gave everyone their own story, if maybe every wave carried a lesson meant for someone else. Far away, in another city filled with noise and lights, she stood in a white gallery surrounded by her paintings. Canvases of ocean storms, golden horizons, moonlit tides, all pieces of the same memory. People walked by, admiring her work, whispering praise, calling her talented. But inside, she felt something missing, something no applause could fill. At night, she dreamed of the sea. She could hear its voice, soft, patient, eternal. It called not her name, but her truth. One evening, she stood before her largest painting, a vast ocean under a fading sun, and she realized something. Art, no matter how beautiful, could not replace experience. The ocean didn't live on her canvas. It lived in her. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she felt at peace with the silence. Back on the beach, he watched autumn arrive. The air grew cooler, the waves rougher, but the sea was still his teacher. It showed him that even endings had rhythm, that even heartbreak could be graceful. One night, under a sky clear as glass, he built a small fire by the shore. He whispered into the flames, "If she remembers this place, she'll know it's waiting." The smoke drifted upward, curling toward the stars. The tide came in, slow and deliberate, as if carrying his words out to sea. Time passed, not in days or months, but in tides. Winter wrapped the beach in stillness. The sea grew darker, deeper, more introspective. There were no children now, no laughter, only the whisper of wind and the steady breathing of the earth. And yet, one morning, when the sky began to blush with early light, a figure appeared at the far end of the beach. She walked slowly, her scarf fluttering in the cold wind, eyes searching the horizon like someone returning home. She saw him before she saw him, and for a moment she thought it was just memory, a trick of light. But then she waved. A small, trembling wave that cut through the fog of months and distance. He ran to her, the cold forgotten, the world collapsing into a single heartbeat. When they met, she didn't speak. She simply touched his face, as if to confirm he was real. He smiled. "The ocean brought you back." She nodded through a tear. "It never really let me go." They sat on the same rock where they once talked about tides and time. The wind was colder now, but the silence was warm. She said softly, "I painted every day. I thought if I could capture the sea, I could capture peace. But it turns out, peace isn't something you paint. It's something you meet." He looked at her. "And you found it?" She smiled faintly. "I think it found me." As the sun rose higher, the world felt brand new again. Waves rolled in and out like the breath of something infinite. He said, "You once told me the ocean doesn't hold on to waves." She laughed gently. "And you told me it remembers everything." Maybe both are true. Maybe remembering isn't about holding on. It's about becoming. They sat together for a long time, watching the tide move in perfect rhythm, the kind of rhythm that makes you believe that even when people drift apart, something larger, something unseen, keeps them connected.
Chapter 5. The Light Beyond the Waves. The sea does not end where the water meets the sky. It continues, unseen, into memory, into faith, into the quiet space between one heartbeat and the next. Morning came slow and golden. The wind moved gently across the tide, scattering light like 1,000 tiny promises. They walked the beach together once more, their shadows stretching long behind them. Neither spoke for a while. They didn't need to. Some silences are so full they can hold whole worlds inside them. Finally, she said, "Do you ever wonder what the ocean sees when it looks at us?" He smiled. Maybe it sees itself, trying to learn what it means to be human. She laughed softly. And maybe it wonders why we're always searching for things we already have. They reached the end of the shore, where the land curved inward and the rocks shimmered with spray. There, an old lighthouse stood, paint chipped, windows salt-stained, its lamps still glowing faintly even in daylight. He looked up at it. "Funny," he said, "how light can guide ships from miles away, but it can't move at all." She ran her fingers along the worn stone. Maybe it doesn't need to. Maybe its strength is in staying. Inside, dust floated in shafts of light. The sound of waves echoed through the hollow tower like a heartbeat. She turned toward him. "When I first came here, I thought love was about holding on, but the ocean taught me it's about belonging. To yourself first, then to the moment." He nodded. And the moment never really leaves, it just changes form. Outside, the day grew bright and wide. Children played further down the beach. Gulls dove and rose again. The world felt alive, renewed. They sat on the rocks, feet touching the cool water. The sea stretched before them, endless, forgiving. He said quietly, "You know, I used to think my life was like a straight road, all forward, never back. But the ocean, it made me see that life is a circle. Everything returns, the waves, the wind, even the people we think we've lost." She leaned her head on his shoulder. Maybe that's what eternity really is. Not time without end, but love that keeps coming back. As the afternoon faded, clouds rolled in. Not storm clouds, but soft, high veils of gray. The light changed, silver now, gentle as memory. She took his hand. "Do you remember what you told the fire that night? That if I remembered this place, I know it was waiting?" He smiled. "Did you?" "I did," she whispered. "Every wave reminded me." They watched the horizon blur into mist. It was impossible to tell where sea ended and sky began, as if the world itself had finally stopped drawing boundaries. Evening descended. Bonfires dotted the sand again. Music drifted through the air. People danced, laughed, loved. And through it all, the ocean kept breathing, steady, timeless. He looked at her one last time before the night swallowed the sun. "When we're gone, the sea will still be here. Do you think it will remember us?" She smiled, eyes bright with tears. "Only if we lived truthfully enough to leave an echo." He thought about that. About footprints washed away but not lost. About voices carried in the wind. Maybe that's all anyone could hope for. To be a brief shimmer of light upon the endless water. To love enough that even the tide pauses to listen. The moon rolls high, silvering the waves. They stood together, motionless, as if afraid to disturb the perfection of the moment. The ocean whispered, not loudly, not in words, but in rhythm. It said what it always had, since the beginning of time. Come and go, rise and fall, begin again. He turned to her and said, "We'll meet again. Maybe here, maybe somewhere the sea can't reach, but we'll meet." She nodded. Because everything the ocean takes, it returns. And with that, they walked back along the sand, their footprints glowing faintly in the moonlight before the tide gently erased them, not in loss, but in renewal. When dawn broke, the beach was empty. The waves rolled on, eternal and tined. A single seashell lay where they had stood, smooth, luminous, shaped by time and tenderness. The sea carried it forward, out into the wide world, whispering their story into every tide. And so the ocean remembered. And so did the light beyond the waves.